Hello and welcome back to my channel, Nerdy's Doll Creations. Today I'm working on this Claude Wolf doll. He's a little bit wobbly, but we'll get through that. The concept for him was designed by my very own handy helper. I began, as always, by removing what accessories he has, his shoes and his shorts. We'll be saving those and using those in his final look. I also cut off his hair and removed the razor or shaved look on the sides of his head, the flocking powder. I am keeping his ears. Handy helper has the design with his ears, and I think that's really cute. I use my hair dryer here in a moment to pull his head off, but first I'm using 100% pure acetone to take off his factory paint and that flocking that's on the side of his head. Please be careful when using 100% acetone. It is flammable and dangerous. The fumes are fairly toxic. Please don't use this as you hear this product if you're under the age of 13. Doll customizing is definitely not for young children. I soaked some pads, some cotton pads with the acetone, put it on the flocking powder for a couple of moments, maybe only about a minute or two, and then use those cotton pads to just kind of wipe it away, kind of just literally wipes off if you soak it just for a little bit. Try very hard not to get the acetone on the body. It doesn't react with the rubber head too much if you use it quickly, but it can actually eat through the hard plastic of the body. And you saw right there, I used my hair dryer to warm up his head, and then I was able to pull off his head without breaking the neck peg. I used a tool to scrape the inside free of all the hair from the top of his head, and now I'm using my locking tweezers to pull out all the gluey bits of leftover hair from the inside. For some reason, this is really satisfying. It's gross, but satisfying. So once I have everything nicely cleaned off and I got a blank canvas, I take my sanding pads here. They're by 3M, they're fine, up to ultra fine, and just sand the living daylights out of his entire body to give it that nice matte texture that is really, really easy to paint on and use chalk pastels. Here I'm using 100% acrylic yarn in the color chocolate made by Karen Simply Soft. I take each strand, make it about the length I want, then pull them apart. It's really, really easy if you do it the way I'm doing here, where you pinch the main body and just pull one at a time. They just come right loose. And then you can use your homemade reroot tool or a store-bought reroot tool. Mine's an X-Acto blade, X-Acto knife handle with a cut-off needle stuck in it. Here you can see I redrew his hairline because we weren't going to be doing the shaved head look. Instead, we are giving him a full shaggy mane, as per that concept chart you saw at the beginning here. I just take each one of these individual strands and plunge it into his head. Repeat that about 100,000 times and you'll get a nice full head of hair. Here that is. I have not straighten it or anything yet. First I'm going to use this glue all, just trying it out for the first time, see how that works. I fill his head up with glue, then take a Q-tip and kind of swap it around in there, try to make sure I hit all of the glue all the hair plugs. And I have to admit, I missed a few apparently. when I brush out his hair later on, it actually pulls a few out. That's okay. Sometimes that happens. You can fix it by putting a tiny bit of glue on the strand, on a new strand. As you put it on the reroot tool, then plunge it into his head. That will take care of the problem. It's just easier if you don't mess it up like I did. Here I'm just cleaning off the neck peg or neck hole with the cotton swab to make sure that there's no glue left on there that would hinder the head movements when I put his head onto his neck again. And you can see at this minute his body and his face are not matching, and that's because I had used those sanding pads. I go ahead here and brush out all of his locks. They are not going to stay this long. I'm going to give him a real rough cut later at the end of the video. You'll see that. But I use a pet brush, pull out or brush through all of his hair, and this is what I'm left with. I got a big pile of fluff and some pretty crazy hair that would actually make a very awesome afro if you wanted to go that route. The concept art has them with a really shaggy head, so that's what I went with. But an afro would look really cool too. So here I am. I'm gonna wrap his head up in a burrito. I am using a spare bandana and just some sewing pins that I've used over and over and over. They are covered in Mr. Super Clear, but they still work, so I'm still using them. As you can see, I just take the edge of the bandana and my pins and put it exactly around his hairline. And here he kind of looks like some kind of Egyptian pharaoh, which I thought was funny. Give him a couple layers of Mr. Super Clear, both his face and his body, and then I get started on his face up. To begin, I use my Pitt Pastel white pastel pencil to kind of draw out his eyes, give a nice base, because his skin is so dark. When I give him his blue eyes, I wanted them to be able to stand out so you could really tell that they were blue. So giving him a white base to begin with is a really good idea. I give him a general shape. Then I use my sharpenable pencil eraser to carve out the correct shape. And I did most of this off camera because I want to be able to get his face as close to my face as possible so I can see really well what I'm doing. And there's a good shape for him right there. And as you can see, I'm using these pan pastels in different shades of burnt sienna, which really went well with his coloring. I've got a colorless blender there. I've got two of them there, actually. I didn't realize I had two. And then just some other, just different shades of flesh tones that worked really well. I didn't end up using the lightest ones there because they just weren't the right shades, but the three browns and that kind of yellowish lighter tone worked really well. And here you can see I'm starting to carve in all the indents in a fairly well chiseled male face. I'm darkening around his eyes, across his the bridge of his nose. I really want all of the bones, the bone structure, to really stick out. So if you think about a human skull, anywhere there would be a hollow spot, so hollows of the cheeks, inside the eye sockets, across the bridge of the nose, all those places, I really wanted those to sink in just a little so that all the bones around it would really, stand out. I will highlight those later. Here you can see I'm almost giving him an angry brow. He doesn't look really angry at the end, but this initial contouring, it kind of looks like he is, which amused me just a little bit. Yeah, I use those three shades you see right there to push some parts of his face in and pull some of the other parts out, and then to really just blend everything I still have not given him yet another coat of Mr. Super Clear. I don't usually do that until after I've got his initial shading down. I'll be using some big fluffy brushes just to really blend it, and that colorless blender does a fantastic job of giving seamless blending. I highly recommend it. And there's my fluffy brush just to clean up any excess powder that might not have been worked in. Here I have started in on doing the blushing on his body. Again, I'm using that darkest shade to push back parts. Like I really wanted his the hollow of his throat, the sides of his neck to be pushed back, and the bones and ridges to be pulled out. Again, with another fluffy brush, I'm blending really well using that colorless blender. Give him his abs and his pectoral muscles, his triceps and biceps, and just really trying to make his body and his face match just a little bit better. I made his face a little darker, so I definitely needed to make his body just a little darker to match the concept. In the picture, he's not nearly this dark because she didn't have the right shades of color pencils at where she is, my handy helper, I mean. But she wanted him to be darker than what the original doll was. Here you see I'm just adding more shading. I'm shading knees and ankles, feet, just everywhere that the human body just kind of naturally goes in. Another layer of Mr. Super Clear. I did 2 on the face before I start the eyes. I'm using these Derwent watercolor pencils, which I absolutely love these for face ups. They work really well, especially over that Pit Pastel pencil there that I use for his eye whites, the Scleris. And different colors of blue for his eyes, and then right around his pupils will be that lime green yellowish color. Once you put it over blue, it really becomes more like a lime green, which I really like for his eyes. And of course here I'm just sketching out the actual shape, so I can get a full concept of what I'm doing. Once I'm happy with that, I just start filling in everything. A handy helper wanted him to have a nice piercing sort of look, so he is looking dead center, straight on this time instead of off to the side or down. I really enjoy giving dolls blue eyes. I'm not sure why, they just are gorgeous. I don't have blue eyes, Handy Helper doesn't have blue eyes, but I just love giving dolls blue eyes, so there you go. And while I'm working on this face up, let's ask a question. How are you guys celebrating Pride? Do you celebrate Pride? I know that sometimes that question can be scary to some people, but as long as everyone remembers that everyone else is also human, it shouldn't be scary at all. And Handy Helper really wanted to make sure that he kind of looked like he was wearing eyeliner, even though we don't give him massive lashes later. For some reason, his eyes being really well outlined was important to her, so I made sure to do that for her. And once again, yet another layer of white. I keep doing this the entire face up until I'm ready to shade them at the very, very end. I think I give my dolls probably somewhere around 14 or 15 layers of Mr. Super Clear by the time I'm done, before I'm completely satisfied. And don't get me wrong, I'm never completely satisfied, There's always room for more improvement, but he turned out really, really well. Now, somewhere along the way, I lost some footage of filling in his eyes just a little bit better, but by now you probably know how to do that. And now I've decided to go ahead and start in on his eyebrows just a little bit. And started with a color that's very similar to the brow bone there, just to get the idea, the shape right. And we definitely wanted to give him a split eyebrow, a shaved eyebrow, I guess is the way to call it. I'm not sure what they call it, how they call it. Once I was fairly happy with that, I went over it with the black Derwent pencil, just doing tiny strokes. I definitely wanted these to be a little more bushy than what I normally would do, just to make them a little more masculine. Once I have that layer down, I'll add another layer of Mr. Super Clear and then go over it with the gray just to give some highlights, a light gray, not quite white, but a light gray, and the brown again. And just kind of mix up the colors just a little bit, try to make them darker than his hair, but not too dark. And here he is, final look of his face. I'm using a no wipe gel nail gel. It's cured in a UV lamp or UV LED lamp. I just use a toothpick, pick up a little bit. You saw I put it on a little palette. I do one eye, then cure it, do the other eye, cure that. Normally I would do the lips at that point, but since I don't want him to look like he's wearing lipstick, I didn't do that this time for this doll. Then I realized, oh yeah, I forgot to put the eye shines on. I didn't want to do my standard signature dot, white dot. Instead, I wanted to use these holographic rainbow glitters. So I put a little more of the gel on, stick one of the glitters on, and then cure it, and then do a third and final layer of UV top gel, just to seal in that glitter, make sure it wasn't going to pop off. These little lamps are fantastic for doing this sort of thing. It's really hard to see on camera, but boy do those glitters actually just are stunning with a rainbow. Here's that concept art one more time. We decided to do a color change really quick, and the reason for that, you'll see in a minute, was the shirt we found. Instead of giving him purple pants, I decided to do, well, Handy Helper and I decided to give him pink pants. And you'll see I'm using pink acrylic paint and some textile medium. When you do that, you mix equal parts, mix it really, really well. It keeps the fabric from being too stiff. They still are going to be stiff, but it's not going to be so bad. And if you were to wash these, the stiffness would actually go away. And this is where I probably was really stupid. I put the pants on my fingers and just started painting. Yes, my fingers were pink for a little bit, but honestly, these shorts actually turned out really cute, kind of a dusty pink, which I really liked. For some reason, I just really like this color that it turned out. It's almost purple in the right color lighting, but it wasn't so overly pink to be too feminine. I didn't want him to be too feminine. His concept is that he is gay, and his gender is male. It was not a transgender doll is what my handy helper came up with. As you see, I'm painting these. I actually got paint on the Velcro, which made the Velcro not work anymore. So later on you'll see I'm struggling with that. And I do actually switch it out for a snap closure. And that stays just fine. So once his pants are shorts are painted, I put those off to the side and let those dry. Once they're dry, I can go ahead and get him dressed. First, I'll remove his burrito. This is a little harder when you have brushed out yarn hair. The fabric of the bandana wants to stick to the hair, or the hair wants to stick to the bandana, one way or the other, however it is. And you see his knees are really loose, his knee joints are loose. I do struggle with that with his pictures later. You probably won't notice, but I did have trouble with that. And you'll see here I'm fighting with the Velcro to stay in place. Here's that shirt I was telling you about. Found it in our stash of random doll clothes. And just on a whim, I put it on him, sent the picture to my handy helper, and she said, yes, use that shirt. That is perfect. I said, do you want me to paint it, make it so that it has a heart? She goes, no, leave it the way it is. So I've left it the way it is. I said, it is a little short, of course, but she thought that would actually be something that he might wear to a rally. And to be honest with you, I think it looks adorable. So there he is, and you'll see here I'm starting to straighten out his hair, pull out his front fringe, bangs, whatever you want to call them, straighten them with my hair straightener, my little hair straightener here. I pull it really hard through the weft or the lock, and then comb it while it's still hot. That straightens it out perfectly. And then I do that for the rest of the head. I lost the footage, or perhaps I just never hit record of me cutting off his hair, giving him that choppy look. But here he is in his final look. I think he turned out adorable. Had to do a quick shot with his new best friend, Kopara. Her video will be linked down below. Check it out. And happy Pride to everyone out there. We love it.